Good morning, everybody. Fernando Labastida with the UXAI Summit here in another episode of the Speaker Preview Series. I'm here with Bryan Eisenberg. Bryan Eisenberg is together with his brother Jeffrey, they're uh, digital marketing OGs from almost 30 years ago. They're authors of 11 best-selling books, including The Wise and Bees Millionaire, Be Like Amazon, their classic Waiting for Your Cat to Bark, Call to Action, and then the latest book, I Think I Swallowed an Elephant. Bryan, thank you so much for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about, you could be the opening keynote speaker at the UXAI Summit, right? But tell us a little bit about, try to encapsulate the last 30 years into 2 minutes, because I want people to really understand where you're coming from and what your perspective is regarding AI in this current crossroads that we're at right now.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I remember the early days in the internet. We had met what we thought was a very old man back in the days, right? 30 years ago, I was in my 20s. And old man talked about all these cycles that happen over and over again, and in terms of investment, in terms of technology. Yeah, we touched a little bit about that in Waiting for Your Cat to Bark. And, we were at the very early days of the internet where, like you had the huge group of people who didn't believe it was going to be a big deal. And then you had old people who were saying, well, oh, okay, we're getting excited. You have a business plan that's that big. Sure, we'll give you lots of money. Go spend it, burn it somewhere. And we ended up in the dot bomb.
I remember those days.
It was classic, right? And so, we were one of the original people focused in on SEO. We coined the term conversion rate optimization. We pioneered that field. We put out the books, like you said, published over 2 million words at that time, way before AI. In fact, the AIs have trained on a lot of our content. We can see that in the models. You can look at that. It is what it is. But, I think we're at such an interesting point in our collective journey that it's taken 20 years to get the adoption of internet and measurement. I founded the Web Analytics Association. 20 years to kind of really get that cemented in kind of common ground, right? Where it's kind of everyday vocabulary, and felt like a blink of an eye. And now we're looking at AI coming in, and, as we talk about with Cat Bar, there are few technologies that fundamentally change human behavior. It's transportation, right? When we went from horse and buggy to cars to plane, like it just changed everything. Then there's financial technology. We used to go from, trading to, to barter to stored currency. And, then we started offering credit cards, and now we're talking crypto and other things. And then, of course, there's communication. We went from the spoken word, right, together as a group, to eventually print, right, one by one, to the printing press, to eventually radio, and then to TV, and then the internet. And now AI is kind of pushing everything behind it. And it's a fascinating thing to look at how all of this is converging, while at the same time looking at some of the world history events that have been happening, such as COVID, and how that isolated us. When this technology coming in, and now coming to a point where, as you said, it's YOU, and AI. And how do we leverage that in such a critical moment in our time? Because AI is an incredibly powerful tool, just like fire was, just like the beginning of the internet was, just like the beginning of the car was. It's likely more powerful in many ways and may have been world changing than any other way. But we've got to use it intelligently to make the right impact, and really focus in on still things that matter the most, which is connection to people.
Right, exactly. And I'm seeing almost like a backlash, because we've had a good run with AI since about 2022, 2023, people really exploring it, then seeing the power that it gives them to create content so easily. And now everybody has essentially become a content creator. And now everybody's complaining about AI stuff in their timeline, about, you can't, you don't know what we can trust. There's a trust wall that has been built right? That marketers and businesses have to get over. And you're talking about people getting together, which is just, kind of ironic. It's around an in-person conference in September 12th. But tell me a little bit more about that and kind of what you want to cover in your open keynote related to that.
Well, you kind of alluded to it, right? Everybody today is a content creator. And if you go back in history, like, the original books were written by hand, so only a few people could scribe them, right? Then we got the printing press, and now more people could get content out. It still wasn't easy, but, it happened. Then we got radio. And again, that got segmented into licenses, and only a few had access to be able to put out, their radio signals. And then TV. And of course, we started with the 3 channels, then cable, now a million streaming services, right? And then the internet came along, and just about everybody was democratized to be able to create some form of content. And we were very fortunate. One of the early ones, we created a category around conversion optimization because there was no content that existed about it. We published over 2 million words, in our books, in our articles. I was a regular columnist, featured in the New York Times and Wall Street Journal. Like, well, all of that happened. What happens in each step of those, there's friction that got removed that makes it easier for people to publish. And so when you kind of inverse that, there's no friction. In all persuasive momentum, there's 2 things that you got to work on, right? Reducing friction. Today, there's 0 friction to produce content. And you can generate print, you can generate pictures artificially, you can generate videos now, automatic. 0 friction, which means the only other force is the motivation. And the motivation is the human connection. That's the authenticity. That's the real connection between you and I. And so that trust factor only happens between real humans. And I think that's the power of connecting. It's why I've invested a whole bunch of time. And I'm so thrilled to be coming out to Waco because I invested a ton of time here locally in Round Rock, investing in those relationships, not only leveraging the one-on-one conversations or the group conversations, what I do with the Round Rock Chamber, but what I also do on the Rock Solid Round Rock podcast, but also how I use AI to help stretch the reach of that connection in that story so I can impact my neighbors. There's a cute little video of me kind of getting ready on set to the theme of Mr. Rogers, because I feel like these are the people in my neighborhood I get to interview. But that's real, right? People know me, that algorithms know me from so many years of publishing content, and I'm able to go out there and extend a real handshake to meet with people in the studio, right? And in person, but in the studio, and then leverage technology, right? So they can get their story out better. And that's what has a real impact today. And I think, manually, it used to take me hours a week to be able to process every single episode after it was produced, right? I'm talking about just getting the content out and, the blog posts and the social media and all of that. Yeah, I've simplified a ton of it. It still needs my human expertise. It still needs my feedback. So again, it's you with the AI and not separately. It's just a tool to enhance. The more you are you, the better the AI is actually going to be.
Okay, so I think that you touched on the exact thing that we're actually talking about in the US AI Summit, which is, you're doing a lot of stuff with the Round Rock Chamber of Commerce. You almost become a persistent fixture. You're at all the meetings. I go to a lot of those meetings. You go to all the ribbon cuttings. You're there in person. No, as if you're running for mayor. Just kidding. But at the same time, you with your podcasts, which you actually do in person at another very cool studio in Round Rock. What was the name of the studio?
Round Rock Studio. Real simple.
Round Rock Studio. Okay, so but at the same time, you have helped make the process of taking the real genius of the people that you interview, your own genius, but making that process a lot faster with the very really cool proprietary AI powered systems. Can you go a little bit just to kind of give people little kind of like overview as to what you're doing and kind of what the appetite of people coming to your talk?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the process of a podcast, so we record live, one or two guests every Friday, um, and we have about a 12 to 15 week window where we're publishing previous guests. So you can imagine in 12 to 15 weeks, I barely remember what we discussed during the podcast because I'm so locked into the guests. I can't remember the details. So I have to wait the next 12 to 15 weeks to listen to that episode. And so what would tend to happen is I'd listen to that episode, then I'd want to go ahead and I'd want to write a blog post for Rock Solid RR and give it its general take for the community, right? But oftentimes there's a topic there that I'm very passionate about personally, and I blog about it on BryanEisenberg.com. And then, of course, I want to write about something on LinkedIn, and I want to, write something on Instagram and Facebook. And then, of course, I want to have the transcript. We do a whole bunch of other, little details. I don't want to go to all of it, like what I'm doing with it. But, every step of doing that takes time. Even to use just a tool, right? Just to grab the transcript, I still have to, find the YouTube video, go to that website, wait for it, copy it, do all that. Grab the clips from Opus Clip, Bryan, another great technology tool. I have now automated every single one of those steps, including, initial draft of both our blog posts. But it's doing that in a very humanized voice because as I am getting ready to publish, let's say the article on it for Bryan Eisenberg, and I'll give you a perfect example. This week I published an article with the Chief Solution Officer for the Workforce Solutions, rural capital of Texas, Kelly Moreno. And we had a great conversation about all this thing that this organization does for Texas employers that most people have no idea of. But one of the key ones where we were talking about job listings and job postings. Okay. I also own a local home care agency. So for me, job postings is a critical part of our business. And the key was, she was saying, go ahead and use AI to make sure, that the bachelor's degree that you're requiring really lines up with the skills. And so I want to take my own tilt on this for BryanEisenberg.com as a copywriter, right? Because for me, telling the right story in our job listings has made our recruiting for our caregivers so much easier because they're coming in with the mission. Our retention far outweighs the industry standard of 80% turnover.
Right.
And it starts with that initial touch of the experience point of your job listing, right? But, I wrote the first one. I've used AI to create variations on it in our brand voice, right? Because sometimes you get busy, you forget, you don't want to draft your own. And that's the beauty, but it has to start with the core human story, right? That's unique to us and to our culture. And that's what makes it all work.
Right. Right. Oh, that's fantastic. And then do you all have any other ways you automate? Like you were talking about all these processes that you have to touch with your hand, even the AI stuff. What are some of the other things? Like, do you have any other kind of automated hosting or autonomous processes? Or tell us a little bit more about.
I mean, I have a few other different things that I do and a bunch of different things with clients as well. But here, one of my favorite ones, because it touches right back to what what the point of the conference is, right? I'm very active in the Round Chamber. Our chamber puts on over 100 events a year. Okay. And what would happen often is there's an event that they put every other month on a Friday that happens to coincide with the podcast. And so I miss a lot of those. And so what I decided to do was I used my AI agent to scrape the chamber calendar month to month. So actually, today I will go ahead and I forgot to do it already for the following month, right? Because we're beginning in July now. And I will go ahead and I'll ask my agent to look at all my July calendar events, make sure they're still accurate. but then go ahead and add all the August events tentatively in my calendar so I don't get double booked. Because I want to be present in person.
Right.
Right. Everything I do, so I have a line that I was given by one of my very first mentors. Okay. This is before the internet, all that. And he said, look, I'm temporarily motivated to be permanently lazy. That is the blessing of AI, right? If you're really willing to motivate to think about what are the manual processes, the things that you can do that are repetitive over and over again, that if you had somebody who could just do them for you and buy back your time.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm trying to do. The reason I can get to do so many things is because I keep buying back my time.
That's perfect. That's perfect. And then that way you can focus more on what is really important, which are those rich relationships that you have created, that you have nurtured, that you have curated with everybody who's part around our chamber. I've seen it. You know, they're not connections. They're not fellow members. We're friends.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh
that,
yeah.
it's invaluable.
It's been a huge thing for me to connect with the community. I'm so grateful. I had to do it as part of opening up the franchise location here. But yeah, they've turned into a great thing. What I mentioned earlier with COVID, right? So many of us isolated and forgot how to connect with people. And it's like, if I go a day or two without some of these connections, my body feels different because I don't have it. Like, this afternoon, I'm headed to the chamber. I hope I'll see you there as well to see, our good friend Destin Bell. If that name sounds familiar to some of you, he was on Shark Tank season 16, the last season with Mark Cuban on the first episode, and he got a deal for his app Cardio with David John and Michael Rashad. And he is now heads the local incubator here for G-Beta, the G-Beta Accelerator with the Round Rock Chamber. And he's going to be talking about the failures that founders feel. He's going to be very broad and open. I've heard him talk about some of this. I've certainly felt them as well. But, I wouldn't have wanted to miss it because it wasn't on my calendar because the AI already grabbed it for me.
That's perfect. I think that's the most perfect way to end this interview, Bryan. Look, if people want to connect with you or kind of find out more about you, read some of your books, etc., before the summit, which is September 12th, in Waco at the Performing Arts Community Center on Austin Avenue. If they want to find out about you, etc., what would be the best way to do that?
I would say today, go to Claude, go to ChatGPT, go to Gemini, and just type in my name. You'll find me. But, from Waco down here, it's a really short drive. Come see me at one of the chamber events. I'm pretty much at almost every single one. I'll be happy to introduce you, to let me know that you've come from Waco. I've had friends come from Waco to some of the events here. Let's connect in person even before I get up there.
That's perfect. Well, thank you so much, Bryan. We will see you on the 12th, the opening keynote speaker. If you want to sign up, register, learn more about this discussion about the event, go to uxai.live at uxai.live. See you then.